Hi, welcome to or welcome back to Zinc Sterling. I'm Timothy Zink, and in today's video, we're going to be doing a comparison between using borax and water as a flux and a self-pickling flux that you can buy, such as like Mighty Flux from Rio Grande.
So here you're seeing I have the borax flux, that is just 20 mule team borax pulverized into water, and the Mighty Flux in a little plastic bottle with a dropper needle for application. I do want to apologize in advance that during this video the camera does drift a little bit. However, the piece never drifts out of view, so you will be able to see the whole process as it goes through. For the first piece, I am setting up with a back plate and then the bezel, and I will use a paintbrush to apply the borax flux in water. And the main thing you want to do here is to make sure that you add enough to the entire seam at the bottom that you don't have any gaps where there's no borax for the silver to flow. You want to make sure you just paint it in around the entire piece. Here, as the piece heats up, you'll see that the borax flux bubbles up and turns white. Just make sure there's no gaps in it. You want to make sure there's borax around that entire seam, otherwise your solder is not going to flow all the way around. Then here I'm just using hard solder from Rio Grande. It is a stick solder. I haven't rolled it out and made it into little chips. And I'm just going to heat the piece till it's nice, brought up to temperature. I'm going to tap it once with the solder and it flows right around in a circle with no issues whatsoever. And then for this bezel, we're just using the Mighty Flux. Once again, you want to make sure you cover the entire piece, get it all the way around in a circle, and as you heat it up, it's going to bubble up quite a bit. This is where any fumes that are going to be released. I don't recommend hovering your face directly above this. It doesn't smell great. And then once it's up to temperature, once again, I'm just going to poke it with the stick. The solder is going to flow all the way around. I believe I had to poke it twice because right here I tried to add the solder before it was quite up to temperature. Right here I'm just looking at the piece and I noticed that there was quite a bit more fire scale with the Mighty Flux than there was with the original. I dipped it in water, just cooled it off real fast. And yeah, from what I could tell, there was quite a bit more fire scale. I think in the future I'll be using probably borax flux for most of my applications, especially if I'm doing several pieces. And at the very end, you're going to see the photos of how both of these rings turned out. In the end, there wasn't really a huge difference for quality of how it turned out in the end. Both pieces got pickled together. They both came out of the pickle nice and white. You'll see those pictures toward the end. But just with the Mighty Flux, it seemed like the fire scale was quite a bit different. Here you'll see as the camera focuses, the one on the right, that's just borax and water. The one on the left, that's a self-pickling Mighty Flux. You can clearly see the difference in fire scale. And then I just set these rings with some really nice pieces of Armenian turquoise from the Tag Hut mine. Really nice pyrite turquoise.
After spending the last week running several tests between the two fluxes, I've come up with a list of pros and cons between just borax and water, which in my case I'm using 20 mule team borax, and the self-pickling flux, which in my case I'm using Mighty Flux from Rio Grande. For the borax, the cons that I came up with is just that it's more steps to set up. So for like a borax cone, it's a cone, a ceramic dish, you add a little bit of water, you grind the cone down into the bottom of the dish till it adds enough borax to the water that it can be used as a flux. That's pretty simple. If you don't have a borax cone, then you're using the powdered borax, in which case you have to kind of pulverize it into the water to get it to mix well, because it doesn't just dissolve, it kind of stays in little beads. So in my case I used just a wooden dowel. I pulverized it till it made a good slurry and it worked great. For the pros, I have that it's cheap. 20 mule team borax is like, I want to say $2.50 for a big box of it. The cones are about, from what I've seen, $6 to $8 for a cone, and they last quite a long time. There was basically no fumes with just borax flux. It's just a glass. It melts into a glass. There's not a lot of fumes, so you don't have to worry about that. And I also, the biggest thing I noticed from it was that in the comparisons I've done over the last week, the borax flux actually caused less fire scale when I was doing soldering. Now that's nothing with the self-pickling flux, that you can't just pickle off after your soldering thing, but in the initial solder, it was less fire scale than the borax flux. For self-pickling flux, I also came up with a list of pros and cons. So for the cons, it's more expensive because you kind of run through it a lot faster. It's not super expensive, it's about $12 for a pretty big bottle, but depending on how you're using it, if you're using the applicator and the little bottle with the needle, then you can kind of spot it and you run through it slower. If you put it in a spray bottle, which I've done in the past for bigger pieces, it's hard to control because spray bottles all spray at different rates. So sometimes you'll find that you're running through a lot more than you necessarily would need to be. And it does create fumes. Now, from what I've seen, it's not necessarily toxic because you're not getting like a lot of fumes, but it's not something you want to be like hovering your face over and just inhaling a bunch of it. It'll hurt your lungs. It doesn't feel great. Learned my lessons the hard way. I do it responsibly now. As for the pros, the biggest thing is just that you pour it out of a big bottle into a little bottle with a needle. It's fast, it's easy, and that's about it. It's just really fast and easy, and there's no real guesswork. You don't have to worry about, did you mix enough borax into it that your solder is going to flow properly. It's just good to go straight from the bottle onto the silver. For me personally, I think that, so I learned with self-pickling flux, I've spent several years, going on 13 years using self-pickling flux, but after getting into borax flux, I find that it's just easier to clean up. There's less cleanup because there's less fire scale, so I don't have to worry about getting like a deep part of fire scale that I have to sand out for, a decent amount of time afterwards. It's just quicker and easier, even though you have that initial step of pulverizing the borax if you're using 20 mule team borax into the water. So I think from now on, I'm probably going to stick to the 20 mule team borax, especially if I'm doing like a lot of pieces like production where I'm doing 20, 30 rings in a row, because it's easy to just keep a little ceramic dish with some borax flux sitting on my bench. I don't have to worry about running through a bottle, having to refill, and just having, a buildup of fumes.
Here you can see how both pieces came out of the pickle. The borax flux on the right, the mighty flux on the left. Maybe the one on the left still has a little bit of fire staining, but they really came out almost exactly the same. And then in these pictures you can see how the end product came out. Now you have the borax flux on the left, the mighty flux on the right. They both came out beautiful, a couple of very beautiful rings.
I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you have any questions or if there's any other soldering techniques you would like to see or have compared to, please let me know in the comments below. I know there's a lot of like paste solders and things like that, but most of them fall into the two categories of either like a borax flux solder or a self-pickling solder such as Mighty Flux.